The nursing home administrator sat across from me in that sterile conference room, and I could see it in her eyes. She expected me to yell, to threaten, to be just another angry family member she'd have to manage. But I wasn't there for revenge. I was there because of a promise I'd made to my wife 3 days before she died. And what happened in that room and in the months that followed reminded me that sometimes the worst moments can lead us to the most unexpected grace. If you've ever felt like fighting for what matters can lead somewhere beautiful, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button because this channel celebrates the moments that restore our faith in humanity. Smash the like if you believe that dignity and memory matter, and drop a comment about a time you fought for something that mattered and found unexpected kindness along the way. Now let me tell you what happened when I walked into that nursing home, not to fight but to remember. My wife Margaret lived in Cedar Ridge Care Facility for the last 8 months of her life. Dementia. The kind that takes someone away slowly, piece by piece, until you're sitting beside a person who looks like your wife of 47 years but doesn't remember your first date, doesn't remember your children's names, doesn't remember the life you built together. But she remembered her jewelry, not what it was exactly or where it came from, but she knew it was hers. She'd run her fingers over her wedding ring during the bad days, the days when nothing made sense and she was scared and confused. That simple gold band was an anchor, something real, something that felt like home even when nothing else did. 3 days before she passed, she had one of those moments of clarity that sometimes come at the end, her eyes focused. She looked at me, really looked at me, and she said, "Don't let them take my rings, Tommy. They're all I have left of me." I promised her. I held her hand, and I promised. 2 days after her funeral, I went to collect her belongings. The staff had packed everything into 2 plastic bags, her clothes, her photos. Her little ceramic bird she kept by the bed in the jewelry box was empty. I stood there in her empty room holding that empty velvet box, and something cracked open inside me. Not anger, not yet, just this overwhelming sense of wrongness. Margaret had already lost so much. Her memories, her independence, her dignity in so many small ways that accumulated over those 8 months. And now someone had taken the last physical things that connected her to herself. The nurse at the station, Denise, I'd gotten to know her, looked genuinely confused when I asked. "Let me check the logbook," she said. But I could see something in her face, a flicker of recognition. This had happened before. Patricia Holloway agreed to meet with me the next day. Professional smile, practiced empathy. "Mr. Chen, we've conducted a thorough search. Sometimes in the final days items get misplaced. Family members sometimes take things home and forget. It happens more often than you'd think." She was implying I'd taken them, or that Margaret in her confusion had hidden them somewhere, or that they'd never existed at all. That's when I knew I had to take this further, not because I wanted to fight, but because Margaret deserved better than to be erased like this. I hired a lawyer, filed a lawsuit. Not for the value of the jewelry. Margaret's wedding ring was worth maybe $300. Her grandmother's necklace, perhaps $2,000. I sued for the maximum punitive damages allowed under state law for elder abuse and theft of personal property. The legal process was grueling. Depositions, discovery. I had to relive Margaret's decline over and over again, describe every detail of her final days to strangers. The nursing home's lawyers painted me as a grieving husband lashing out, unable to accept loss quite. But here's what changed everything. During discovery, we got access to the nursing home's internal incident reports, and we found 17 other cases over the past 4 years. 17 families who'd reported missing jewelry, cash, small valuables, all dismissed, all blamed on confused residents or forgetful families, all swept under the rug. My lawyer, Sarah Martinez, sat in my kitchen and spread out the reports. "Tom," she said quietly, "this isn't about your wife anymore. This is about all of them." That's when I understood. This wasn't revenge. This was remembering every single person who'd lost something precious, every family who'd been told they were mistaken, every resident whose final possessions had been stolen and then erased from the record. Word got out, the lawsuit became public record, and a local reporter did a story. Within a week, my phone was ringing. Other families, other stories. A daughter whose father's war medals had vanished. A son whose mother's rosary, blessed by Pope John Paul II in 1987, had disappeared. A granddaughter whose grandmother's engagement ring, a family heirloom from Italy, was gone. We all met in my living room on a Tuesday evening. 11 families. 26 items stolen, memories erased. And here is the thing, we weren't angry. We were sad. We were tired. But mostly we just wanted someone to acknowledge what had been lost, to say, this happened, this mattered, your person mattered. Sarah helped each family file documentation to join the lawsuit as additional plaintiffs. We weren't asking for millions. We were asking for accountability, for policy changes, for dignity. The nursing home fought hard, but something was shifting. The staff started coming forward. Denise, the nurse I'd known, reached out privately. She told me about a nursing assistant who'd been fired 2 years ago for theft, but the home had never reported it to authorities because they didn't want the publicity. She told me about the culture of silence, the pressure to never admit fault, the way residents' concerns were routinely dismissed. She testified. So did 3 other staff members, who'd seen things, who'd reported things, who'd been ignored. The case settled 4 days before trial. The nursing home agreed to pay substantial damages to all families. But more importantly, they agreed to implement a new personal property tracking system, mandatory reporting protocols, and third-party oversight for 2 years. But that is not the part that restored my faith in humanity. The day after the settlement was announced, I got a call from Mrs. Holloway, the administrator, the woman who'd dismissed me in that sterile conference room 8 months earlier. She asked if she could visit me at home. I almost said no, but something in her voice made me agree. She sat in my living room in the same chair where Margaret used to sit, and she cried real tears. Not practiced, not professional, just broken. I knew, she said. I knew things were going wrong. And I told myself I was protecting the facility, protecting jobs, protecting our reputation. But I was just protecting myself from having to admit I'd failed the people I was supposed to care for. I am so sorry. I am so deeply sorry. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small box. Inside was a gold wedding band, Margaret's wedding band. The assistant who was fired. She'd pawned most of the items before we caught her, but I tracked this down. I've been carrying it for 2 months, trying to find the courage to give it to you. It doesn't fix anything, but it is yours. It was always yours. It was always Margaret's. I held that ring in my palm, and for the first time since Margaret's death, I cried. Not from grief, though grief was there, but from something else, relief, maybe, or validation, or just the simple, overwhelming truth that someone had finally said, this mattered. She mattered. Mrs. Holloway resigned the next week, but before she left, she worked with Sarah and the families to create the Margaret Chen Memorial Protocol, a comprehensive system for protecting residents' personal property and dignity. It is now being implemented in 17 nursing homes across 3 states. I think about that conference room sometimes. How I walked in expecting a battle, how she sat across from me expecting to manage a problem. Neither of us knew we were about to become something else. Partners, maybe, or just 2 people learning the same lesson, that dignity can't be managed or buried or explained away. It has to be honored even when, especially when, it is hard. The lawsuit wasn't about money. It never was. It was about saying out loud, these people existed. They had lives and memories and possessions that meant something, and when we fail them, we have to acknowledge it. We have to do better. Margaret's wedding ring sits on my dresser now, next to her photograph. I look at it every morning, and I think about how the worst thing that could have happened, having her last possessions stolen, her memory disrespected, somehow led to 17 nursing homes changing how they treat the people in their care. Margaret would have liked that. In her clear moments, she used to say, make it mean something. Tommy, whatever happens, make it mean something. So that is what we did. 11 families, 1 lawyer, 4 whistleblowing staff members, and 1 administrator who found the courage to admit she was wrong. We made it mean something. Not revenge. Remembering, there is a difference. If this story touched you, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more reminders that even our hardest fights can lead to grace. But here is what I really want. Tell me in the comments about a time you fought for dignity, yours or someone else's, when you stood up for what mattered, even when it was hard. Let's collect these stories together. Let's remind each other that fighting for what is right doesn't have to mean losing our humanity. Sometimes it means finding it. Thanks for watching. And if someone you love is in care somewhere, check on their belongings. Ask questions. Be the person who refuses to let them be erased. Margaret's with me every day in that ring. In the protocol that bears her name, in every family whose loved one's possessions are a little bit safer now. I'll see you in the next one.